Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Yeah, so busy week of rugby coming up. We have the Champions Cup final at the weekend. In the meantime, the Rainbow Cup continues. Now with the showpiece final, I'm sure you saw that news over the last couple of days. So the top Pro 14 side, in effect, will take on the top South African side. It'll be a North versus South final. That will be on June the 19th, venue TBC. At the moment in South Africa, the Bulls, based in Pretoria, are in control. Northern side of the draw, Munster no longer in control after doing all the hard work and winning their opening two. They fell against Connacht, obviously, at the weekend. It means that Benetton are top of the table, 14 points, played 3, won 3. And it's quite the turnaround for Benetton. Didn't win a single game in the Pro 14 last season. Kieran Crowley in charge there. And suddenly here they are, 3 for 3. Now look, there is an element with this competition of it being slightly flawed and curtailed in that Benetton had to beat Zebre home and away. They did, in fairness, beat Glasgow as well, whereas Munster are playing the likes of Leinster and Ulster and Connacht. And there was probably always the potential in this tournament for the Irish sides to dent each other suitably and be out of the running for the showpiece final. But Benetton still have a way to go, really. Munster will be looking for Connacht to do them a favour in round 4. Munster hosts Cardiff, Ulster hosts Scarlets, and then Benetton hosts Connacht. Round 5, neither Munster nor Benetton play. Leinster away to Glasgow, Edinburgh host Ulster. And then round 6, Munster will be in Zebre, Benetton will be away to Ospreys. So Munster in effect will have to beat Cardiff at Thomond and Zebre away, and then they're looking for Connacht or Ospreys to do them a favour and to beat Benetton. So that is where we are in the Rainbow Cup. Very happy to say Irish international Niamh Briggs with us. Hi Niamh.
Hi Joe, how are you?
Yeah, very well. This competition starting to take shape as it unfolds almost. I mean, we now have a final, and Munster, like I said, they're looking for Benetton to slip up either against Connacht at home or Ospreys. You would think somewhere across those two games, for a side that didn't win in the Pro 14 all season last year, there'll be a wobble in them.
Yeah, you'd like to think it, but also confidence and momentum is a huge thing in a tournament like this, especially when it's not very, I don't need to be disrespectful, but it's probably not the main tournament, you know, that they didn't even know this tournament existed when the season started. So I
think you're safe enough to say it's probably not the main tournament. That's a polite way of putting it.
From that perspective, you know, you just don't really know. They have no pressure. They just can go and play. I think Kieran Crowley's an astute coach, to be fair. I think they missed a lot of their players this year through injury. And so from that perspective, I do think that could very well happen. I'm not sure that Connacht will lose to them in sports ground. I think that'll be a tough one for them. But
that one's in Italy, actually.
Oh, it's in Italy, is it? Yeah. Sorry. Look, you'd never know, I suppose. And the Ospreys had a good win as well last weekend. So there's, look, this kind of tournament, I think it's an opportunity for clubs to try things without pressure. I think it's an opportunity for them to try young players. And from that aspect, you know, the results, do they really matter? I'm not really sure. I think it's probably more important to South Africa because they've had no games for such a long period of time and will ultimately be selecting a national squad from those games. So, but from this side, I'm not really sure that it means a huge amount.
It's hard to put it in context, all right. That's the tricky thing with this tournament. Although that said, we are seeing lots of, with a few exceptions, Leinster, Munster jumps to mind as an exception, but we are seeing lots of experienced Irish sides being named, and also we're seeing lots of niggle in these games. It's a funny thing at these interpros. I don't know, maybe familiarity starting to breed contempt. Maybe you can only play against each other so often before little grievances build up.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought there was definitely plenty of niggle in that Connacht Munster game, and to be fair for Leinster, Ulster too. You know, there was no holding back from any of them, and so from that aspect, I do think I like the fact that we're seeing teams go out and play without abandon almost. You know, they're trying things that they probably wouldn't have tried maybe in Champions Cup or a Pro 14 game that mattered. And the majority of them are giving young lads a chance. And I think from that aspect, it's really good because, as you say, if you're going up against an opposition and they're fielding internationals, they're fielding strong players, first team players, and you give a young guy a chance and he excels, well, then you know going forward for next season that they are more than capable, and that's what you're trying to that's what, if I was coaching, that's what I would be looking to use this tournament for, trying to see if you can evolve your game as much as possible and to the next level, and also try and give young guys chances.
Loads to talk to you about and get your thoughts on. We might start with Connacht then beating Munster at Thomond, 24 points to 20, 5 tries, another 2 disallowed, slightly frenetic ending, mixture of frenetic and frantic there. Andy Friend, his first win over Munster. Connacht really, I mean, there's a volatility there and an inconsistency there, which they'll obviously look to clean up, I'm sure. But their ceiling can be relatively high. They have now won at Thomond Park this year. They've won in Belfast, and they had that memorable win against Leinster in January when Jack Carty was brilliant. I mean, that's a decent gathering of scalps to take across the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've just hit the nail on the head. If they can manage to get that level of consistency where they are performing week in, week out, then, as you say, the sky's the limit for this team. I think I love the brand of rugby that they're trying to play. I love the fact that they've taken the best parts of Pat Lamb's era in terms of being able to move the ball, and also bringing a physicality that we probably haven't associated with them since probably the time when they won the Pro 12 or whatever it was at that stage against Leinster in the final. So, but it's that consistency that's probably they've lacked this so much this season. But I thought, without Bundy, who's their kind of like big leader, their mainstay, the one that sets their standard, and in both attack and defence, they were more than capable of matching Munster, and I think that would be a big worry for Munster. But I think hats off have to go to Connacht. I thought they were excellent.
So it would worry Munster that Connacht physically could match them?
Physically and out-muscled them, I thought, at times.
Right.
I thought that they were very astute in how they played. I thought Conor Fitzgerald, he seems to kind of save his best performances for against Munster. There's obviously a little bit of a hurt there that he got let go at the academy, but he's grown hugely, and it just goes to show that if you can stick with players that don't develop at a certain age, that they can come good. You look at the likes of Conor Oliver, Sammy Arnold, Alex Wooden, they're all byproducts of Munster that weren't deemed good enough to be at the start, and all played incredibly well, and all brought niggle, I thought. And as a supporter and a spectator, you kind of love to see that, don't you? Especially when it's this end of the season and there's not a huge amount to play for. You like to see teams being able to show up and play, I think. Well,
it's nice to be reassured as a viewer you're not wasting your time watching a match they're not bothered by. It's good to see they care about it as well, so you can kind of invest in it, I think. On Conor Fitzgerald, 23 years old now from Clare, and originally, as you said, came through the Munster Academy and was let go. So he was playing at 10. I think he played the guts of an hour. I saw a lot of people giving his performance plenty of plaudits. Mixed up his play, lots of variation, read the game quite well. So is he a genuine contender here against Jack Carty going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I just definitely think there was times that they used him in big matches in the Pro 14 this year that ahead of Jack Carty. I think especially after Jack's little dip in form after they were coming back from that World Cup that time, I think Conor Fitzgerald stood in and was more than capable. I think I've definitely seen a huge improvement from him in terms of his physicality and his ability to take the ball to the line. It probably wasn't something that we associated with him when he was younger, and I think that's the thing. You've got to give these young guys a chance, because at 18, 19, 20, they might not just be physically capable or mature enough to be able to understand how to get the best out of themselves. But you bring them into an environment where you encourage them, you appreciate them. And look, I'm not saying Munster didn't appreciate them, but I just think a different environment can sometimes help a young player like that. And so, look, he's got an unbelievable left boot, but he's very intelligent, and he reminds me a little bit of Jack Carty. He's able to find space when it's needed in the backfield, but also to play what's around him. And I thought he controlled the game really well. And
with the view, say, to being an Irish international in 2, 3, 4 years' time, where would he need to develop?
Yeah, I think it's that physicality side of it, definitely. I think it's definitely improving all the time, but he's quite slight, so you've just got to be able to make sure that he's protected in that back line, because he'd definitely be at that level. But also the pace and stuff. So, look, he played really well against Munster in a Rainbow Cup, but its ability to be able to do it on Champions Cup stage before we can even speak about him in an Irish contingency. So from that aspect, yeah, 100% he's growing, but you've got to look at, he's 23 now, and you look across the water at Marcus Smith for England, who's 21, and they're incomparable, and I don't make it sound unfair, but that's the level that Conor Fitzgerald needs to get to in order to be kind of spoken about in that international terms.
No, that's totally fair. One last one on Connacht. I mean, Andy Friend was talking about how their defence was brilliant. He was really happy with that. They definitely have wobbles up front though, and their defensive maul in recent weeks has let them down. And then set piece, they had their wobbles again at the weekend, or on Friday rather. Both props sub before half time, so there's an area of concern there for sure, or certainly an area they might try to strengthen over the summer maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably another issue that they've had this year is their strength and depth. I think when you look at teams that need to compete at the highest level all the time, they've got to be able to roll on, roll off in terms of slot other players in, and it doesn't really make much of a difference. I think when you take out the likes of Finlay Bealham, Buckley, they, if you take out Alton Delan, albeit I love Thornby as second row, I really hope that he gets capped by Ireland this summer. What's coming next is just a little bit light in that, and that's probably where Connacht are a little bit deficient, I suppose, and definitely somewhere that they'll need to try and, like, if you take out, say, Bundy, you've got Tom Daly coming in there at 12, an unbelievable centre who's come from the AIL, and somebody took a punt on him, and look how well he's playing at the moment. Whereas in that pack, I feel that Connacht just are a little bit lacking in that strength and depth to be able to go at the highest level. And look, it must have been a really difficult decision for Andy Friend to see the two boys trudging off after 39 minutes, 40 seconds or something. But, it's a ruthless nature. And at this time, at this level, you don't have time to learn on the game and learn on the job, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you didn't make it lightly. It's not a decision you want to make. We had Ron O'Gara on a couple of weeks ago talking about hooking off a winger, Spanish player on his team after like 30, 40 minutes and feeling abysmal in doing so, but sometimes you have to do it. So Munster, I can't get a read on Munster. I just can't make sense of this team and where they are, and it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, another 2 back. So this is definitely a step back. When they had this thing under control, that win against Leinster, that's the hard work done in many ways, and you're up and running, and there's potentially a showpiece final and a real fill-up for everybody, and then they wobble against Connacht. And again, like I said, experienced team here. I mean, they've Tyke Byrne, they have Conway, Murray's off the bench, Earl's off the bench, they have Diolande, Peter O'Mahony, CJ Stander, Dave Kilcoyne, Joey Carberry have played the last 20 minutes. Like, there's more than enough there. And we'll come to the referee in a second, but just on Munster and where and why they fell short, you mentioned the outmuscling. I saw Gary Doyle on the 42 even saying, like, in the kind of championship minutes, the closing minutes, they turn the ball over on 3 occasions, they mess up a key line out, they spill the ball on 2 separate attacks. These kind of old failings when it really counts and it's really in the melting pot. So what do you read from Friday?
Yeah, I think it was incredibly frustrating. There's probably, so many instances that you could look back and pinpoint and say, I think that's been Munster's issue this year. It's not just been one thing. It's just been so many things. It's been errors compounded by errors, mistakes compounded by mistakes. I think when they held on to the ball, they looked trouble Connacht, but then, silly handling errors, missing set pieces in key areas in terms of that scoring zone and trying to put and if they had a working maul, we saw it at times, they could have put Connacht under a huge amount of pressure, and you're just looking for something simple, an absolute banker ball like that. You could just know that if you go up, you're going to retain it, and they didn't seem to have that. And ill discipline, I think that's probably been a huge thing at times. But for me, it's just almost like a mentality thing. It's not that they're not up for the fight, but I think we saw this huge amount of aggression and intensity against Leinster. You've got to bring that every week, no matter who you're playing, because at this level, if you don't bring that, you're going to be punished. And I think that they were. I think Connacht were in their faces. They didn't allow them any clean ball. I thought Munster revert back to type at times when they get under pressure. I don't think they lacked a lot of creativity at times. And from that aspect, it's just incredibly frustrating. Yeah.
So, which is why I don't want to make the referee the big talking point. And I think Munster lost the game aside from the referee, but he came up because CJ Stander went on about him on Air Sport. Dan Jones, the referee's name, Welsh referee, said it felt like we were playing against more than 15 men. I can say it now that I'm done. So basically, as in, I'm heading home, doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to tell the truth. I thought the referee was rubbish. Now, in fairness, he wasn't the only one. So Alan Quinlan was on OTB AM this morning, and in fairness, Quinny thought as well the referee was pretty poor. Have a listen.
Yeah, look, I think I don't want to insult Connacht people because I'll have a barrage of abuse online if I start. But listen, he was shocking. The referee was absolutely shocking. More shocking for Munster, but shocking enough for Connacht at times as well. I think his whole attitude, decision making, positioning, some of the decisions were terrible. And Munster, rightly so, should feel aggrieved. I watched the game back twice, and I would implore the people who are going to say it's sour grapes or giving out about me saying this, go back and look at the game, take off the, look at it from an impartial point of view, and some of the decisions were really baffling. This will be separated, of course, now. People will take this as a headline. I still think Connacht, for their endeavour, their work rate, their passion, deserved to get what they got at the end, a win, because they just made it so difficult for Munster. And of course, you always have situations where one or two decisions go your way, you can win a game. Look, if the knock-on wasn't given, Munster win the game, and Connacht are heartbroken. But Munster had previous with Dan Jones at the start of the year over in Scarlets as well. I think he pinged them off the park. And I genuinely, clear as day, remember watching that game on TV going, this is shocking. This is like, this guy actually doesn't like Munster. The decisions he's making, they're baffling. The penalising at the breakdown.
Alan, if Munster have previous with a referee like that, then don't they come forewarned? And the second time around,
yeah, but there's some things you just can't do anything about. Some things you can't do anything about. If he's penalising one side for hindmost foot and he's not penalising the other side, and it's blatantly obvious that he's getting decisions wrong, particularly when Munster are on the attack. I think, what can you do about that? Of course, there were situations where the discipline needed to be better. But there was crucial decisions went against him, and that's why CJ Sanders says it.
Alan Quinlan there, OTB AM, full chat available in all the usual places. The 2 tries disallowed, if you didn't see the game. Peter O'Mahony, an obstruction off the ball in the build-up to that try, and then 71 minutes for Andrew Conway. There was a knock-on by Diolande earlier on, which Dan Jones reviewed, and the 2 decisions went against Munster. So, look, and Alan Quinlan there, no doubt. I mean, shocking, terrible, all the rest. And he did emphasise about a gazillion times in the full video, I'm not saying Connacht won because of the referee. So, be kind, social media. But he was trying to separate the result from the referee. If CJ Stander hadn't come out and had a pop at Dan Jones, and we were all talking this, would it have jumped out to you as a bad performance?
Yeah, I think it would have. But I think it was for both teams. I didn't think particularly I thought he just had a poor game all round. I thought the pictures that Munster painted were poor. I thought they're like the breakdown ones for me. It was funny, I was only chatting to somebody today about it, and Munster run this pod forward off 9, and what happens is one runs in front and then they screen him and they hit a runner coming around the corner late. Mm-hmm. And what that means is just a separation between the front runner, the runner that has the ball, and then everybody else. So the way the game has gone now, if you don't fight hard enough on your feet for the ball, you can't roll anymore. You can only have one movement the minute you hit the floor, and it's really easy. If there is a small bit of separation for referees, just go, oh, separation, ping. And from that aspect, they just don't help themselves in terms of they don't need to have that huge separation, because what they're waiting for ultimately is that front runner to turn their body angle back to clear out the ruck. But often what happens is they get bumped by the defence or slowed down, and then it's difficult. So I think the pictures that Munster painted at times, and Ger made a really good point. Like, you've had previous with this referee, you know exactly how he refs. Everything has to be cleaner than clean. You just got to be really solid in how you paint the pictures, I thought. So yeah, look, I 100% agree in that terms that he was poor. I just don't know, I just thought he was bad for both teams, to be honest, and there were definitely issues or like moments in that game that I was questioning for both teams, going, oh God, like Munster got out one there or I don't see. So but yeah, look, I think like Winnie definitely didn't hold back there in terms of how he thought, but he he was poor, but I just think Munster have to be smarter. And if that was a group of young lads that were out there for first or second cap, I'd be like, do you know what? They'll learn from that 100%. But like Peter O'Mahony couldn't speak to him towards the second half, so CJ Sander ended up talking to the referee because Peter just was like, I can't. Like, that's your captain who can't do that. As
in Peter O'Mahony, with all his experience, has to find a way to communicate with the referee.
Has to find a way.
And like, let's be honest, get the referee on side, charm him a little bit if you have
Completely.
to, all that stuff, you know, like...
You've got to play the game almost. And like, you're looking at CJ, Tyke Byrne, Conor Murray, Delande is a World Cup winner, and these guys are not helping the situation by not taking the game by the scruff of the neck and turning around to everyone and saying, right, paint good pictures. And that for me is a leadership. And look, we can go down the road of blaming the referees, no problem. And I agree with Quinny 100% that this was not the reason why Munster lost the game. For me, you've got to just start looking at yourselves before you start blaming other people. And I thought at times Munster needed their big players to show leadership in terms of, right, every ruck has to be clean. We go in with 2s and 3s if we have to. We keep it tight. The weather is abysmal. And we just hold on to the ball. And when Munster scored good tries, they were able to do that by holding on to the ball for a long periods of time. Yeah, I also think having a go at the referee when you've won is kind of okay publicly, but when you've lost, I'm not sure really if it sends out the right message to everybody. Like, you know, it's us who are accountable, not the referee, I think should be the culture. But anyway, I'm sure CJ Stander was frustrated, and we all say things in the heat of the moment. Leinster 21, Ulster 17. So again, two strong sides named here. Ulster were 10-7 up after 52 minutes, and then Conan and Henshaw scored tries. No bonus point for Leinster. They were stuck on 3 tries for about the last 20 minutes. For Ulster, it's 4 defeats in a row, but pretty spirited performance was the general consensus. The other good news from an injury point of view for Leinster, Caelan Doris played for the first time since January, had a few turnovers, played the full 80 minutes, which is great to see his health given the all clear. On the big talking point of the game, for many people, anyone I've spoken to about it, the lingering memory is Robbie Henshaw's tackle. It's what kind of, you know, you think of this game, it's what almost lives in the memory in some way on Robert Balakoon. So it was incredibly high. Ulster were on the charge and going at Leinster, and you felt like Robbie Henshaw sort of went for broke, was the scenario again for people who haven't seen it, and he went incredibly high on Balakoon. And Ian Henderson asked the referee to look at it again. It was a captain's challenge, and the Belfast Telegraph, I didn't hear this on the mic, but I'm presuming the Belfast Telegraph picked it up and verified it. He said it was dangerous, and he said, Ian Henderson, we can't have tackles like that, end quote. And so the referee looked at it, and in effect, I think correctly, Niamh judged that Henshaw, yes, was very high tackle, but it was Henshaw's head that hit off Balakoon's shoulder. So there was no head-to-head contact, therefore no case to answer, and actually Henshaw went off for a HIA. To give you a sense of what some people have said about this, like for instance, Darren Cave caught my eye. He said, I love Robbie Henshaw's intent. I think he was on commentary for Premier Sports. I love Robbie Henshaw's intent. I love how he gets off the line, how aggressive he enters the contact zone, but I hate absolutely everything about the tackle. I get it was, is it head on head or shoulder on head, etc. But I was involved in lots of head on head collisions when I played. I absolutely wince when I look at that. I agree with Ian Henderson. I just can't see how that's not reckless or dangerous. I think for youngsters watching at home, it's a shocking advertisement for the game. If I was one of Robert Balakoon's parents right now watching that, I would be shaken. I don't know what the law book says about that, but I just hate that. We're lucky it wasn't a head-on-head and one of them got a serious injury. We need players to tackle lower than that. I'm amazed we're saying that's acceptable, end quote. Sorry, I know this is a long ramble on my part. I'm trying to get everybody up to speed with it if they didn't see it. So Robbie Henshaw in effect got off kind of like on a technicality that he was almost just lucky Balakoon's head in that split-second moment wasn't 6 inches to the right. So it was like a Henshaw going for broke moment. Yeah, absolutely. I think when I watched it start, I couldn't understand how Ian Henderson had to use the captain's challenge for them to go back and have a look at it.
Yeah.
I thought for first... And when I watched it, I went, oh, definitely yellow. But then
even when you saw the head to shoulder.
And then as I watched it back a few more times, so in my initial moment, I was like, definitely yellow. There has to be, because if you look at Balakoon's head, it's the first thing that moves. So I'm thinking in my head, God, surely it has to be his head. It's the head, his head has been hit because of the way his head moved. But then when they slowed it down and I looked at it, he definitely got off on a technicality because he didn't hit his head. It was the force that he hit him with. Almost whiplashed him in the air, I think. And then you look at the other factor too, that Balakoon just catches the ball, so he's kind of standing, and Henshaw's coming out of force off the line. So when a standing force hits a movable object like Henshaw, you're going to end up with a kind of a tackle like that. So yeah, look, it's in the law of the game, it's obviously fine. I just think that we're so used to seeing World Rugby come down hard on these type of tackles, and the every scenarios around everything in terms of trying to make the game safer. Yeah, look, it's probably an unpopular thing to say, but I can see why it wasn't a penalty. But then I can understand if that was me playing and I was captain like Ian Henderson, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, that was just reckless. But it was loads of factors to it. So it was obviously the force of the hit from a standing point from Balakoon, and then also where he hit. And to be fair to him, he did unbelievably well to get back up from it, because it was... but I would love to have seen that. Like, I think from the laws and the way the guidelines that we're up here talking about at the moment, you've got to be looking at having a lower tackle than that. Yeah. It has to be like... He just got that bit lucky. It's just too much. Yeah, he did, because it's too much error. The margin for error is too much there. And as you say, if Balakoon's head is like a half an inch lower, like that's definitely... probably Robbie Henshaw not going to the lines, because it's probably going to be a big ban. And then, it could be, and you'd hope it wouldn't, but it's a serious injury to Balakoon. And, fair play to Henshaw for coming back on, but he couldn't get up off the ground for a few minutes afterwards. I'd say the impact of it took him by surprise. So from that aspect, yeah, definitely, how... The frustrating thing for me really wasn't the tackle as such, because when you can slow it down and you can see mitigating factors, you can kind of talk your way around it. It was the fact that Ian Henderson had to use captain's challenge on that. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, because then suddenly the referee is having to look at like 10 replays in super slow motion to see if Henshaw's head made contact with Balakoon's shoulder or Balakoon's head. And you're kind of thinking, if you now need 10 replays to adjudge this, how in real time were you so comfortable with the situation? Now, I don't know, maybe Henderson got in his ear so quickly and asked for a captain's challenge that was, it was going to be assessed anyway. That's the only thing I could think of in defence of the referee. But if there ever is kind of any kind of doubt of foul play, you'll often hear the Mike say to TMO, like as they're running to the next phase, can you have a look at that for me? Yeah. He never opened his mouth. We didn't hear him anyway. If he did, we didn't hear him. But you'd be amazed, even like the most casual observer, after the Six Nations we've just had and the sendings off we've just had in the Six Nations, if the referee looked at the Henshaw tackle and thought, yeah, looks good to me. You'd just be flabbergasted if he didn't think that needed to be looked at several times over. So I don't know. So the consensus, and look, some people are saying Henshaw should still have been putting this in because it was so high, but the law book... He basically took a massive chance. There's no way at that speed and that height he could have known exactly where Balakoon's head was going to be, and he just got that bit lucky. And I guess Balakoon got lucky as well. He hurt himself in the process, but he doesn't get the yellow as a result. But I don't know, no one feels good about like that because even you hear the bench erupt. The Leinster bench erupts. They love it. You know what I mean? It's like he's halted this Ulster momentum. They look like they were maybe on for scoring a try. So like it's still sort of in the game when it's desperate times, desperate measures are called for. Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, like if 10 years ago, if he was on my team, I'd be straight over patting him on the back and hitting him up off the ground. I just think the game has changed and the safety aspect has changed so much. And look, like in terms of timing and his ability to get off the line, like you just got to applaud it. But the force, not even the force, it was just how high he was upright and Balakoon was upright. And if Balakoon had dipped at all to catch the ball, there would have been serious consequences. And I guess the point is he hurt himself. That shows why it's dangerous, Yeah, it definitely does. And like if you're going at that speed, and look, like he's probably been Ireland's outstanding defender over the last couple of seasons, and his ability to read situations. And and you're 100% right. Had Balakoon got that ball away, probably looking at a certain try. So it's a try, save and tackle. So if I'm on the line and I'm not really looking at tackle too much and he's on my team, I would definitely jump up because that you've stopped a try and you'd be, all for it. I think it's just when you go back and look at it, it just doesn't look good for the game for me. Yeah.
As for the game itself, final word, Leinster 21, Ulster 17. What did you make of it in general terms?
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it's great to see Jack Conan back, as you mentioned earlier on. He had a huge 80 minutes, but also the little mini battles that were going on around the pitch. I thought Stuart McCluskey and James Hume against Henshaw and Ringrose was really good. I like the look of that back three, and I think Ulster, a bit like Connacht, if they can get that consistency going, they can be really good, because the type of rugby that they play is really good. I thought Henderson had another Munster game as well. So, yeah, look, I think it was a brilliant game all around, to be fair, and definitely both teams will, giving younger guys a run, will have a huge amount of positive sense to take from that in terms of where they're going in the future.
Yeah. Listen, Niamh, brilliant stuff. Niamh Briggs, thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks a million.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.